All right, Monday market wrap up for everybody except on Wednesday because it's April Fool's. The Fool's market wrap up. I can jump through these, our usual little financial numbers summary here. I didn't put them in our document, but I can pull them up.
They're in there.
Today was, gold, silver, and stuff. I got it open here. The Dow was down today, 4%, down to 20,900. S&P was down 4% to 2470, and Nasdaq was down 4% to 7360. Oil down. Oil up a couple percent to basically $21. It's actually up a little bit since then to 21.26. Gold basically flat at 1600. Silver, it was down a little bit. It's back up to about $14, so it's basically flat. Gold silver ratio is still right in there around 113, 115. And Bitcoin was down 3.8%. Crypto was as a whole down a couple percent, and now that the markets have closed, it's actually back up. So it was another kind of, I don't know, markets down, gold sideways, kind of another one of those days. Dollar index was up almost to 100 today. You want to give us the COVID rundown, Corey?
U.S. cases, 205,000, 4,500 deaths. And yesterday there was a spike of 912 total deaths added yesterday. So, global cases almost at 1 million. We're at 926,000 with 46,500 deaths. Alaska is at 113 statewide cases with 14 new cases since Monday.
One of the discussion items that came up in our group discussion today was that China cases coming back, which is something that we talked about a little bit. Like everybody's back to work there. We've seen goods coming out. And one of the questions Josh from Seattle and I had about that was that like the manufacturing cities really didn't get infected the first time around. Everybody just sort of stayed home. And now it appears that people are getting infected. What will the impact of that be? Hard to say. And then there's all these false numbers claims, and you guys have some more details on that. You want to jump in on that?
Yeah, so there's reports of new lockdowns in various provinces, and part of that could be to try to isolate different regions, but it looks like it's provinces which were locked down and then opened are now getting locked down again, with unknown economic impact and impact on manufacturing. There was a Josh in Seattle sent out a link to some Twitter posts, and one of them was a document in Mandarin that is supposed to be some kind of internal document that somebody took a picture of, and it was recommending that people have 6 months supply of food and oil, like cooking oil, and there was videos of people going around grocery stores and loading up on all the rice that they could get. And in one case, it was kind of an odd image from the video where somebody was loading bags of rice into the back of their Audi.
Yeah. In contrast to that, I'm going to paste a link in the comments section here. Nameless sent along this link, which was there's a bunch of Americans, just like regular people, going to hospitals that are supposedly overwhelmed and trying to find the big lines and not finding them, like in Manhattan and stuff. And then there's a couple clips in there where there were some news reports of the epicenter in Italy like 3 weeks ago, and then the epicenter in New York like 1 week ago. And it's a clip of the same hospital. It's an identical clip. It's a recycled clip.
So
And
in the mainstream media, they were recycling the same footage.
the same footage was used. Yeah, the same footage was used, but there were, one was supposedly in Italy and one was supposedly in New York. That, of course, happens. They just plug in stock footage. So who knows? But the video of the guys going to the overwhelmed urgent cares and the epicenter centers in New York were interesting. Now, whether or not those are set up for an anticipated problem or whether they're set up for a problem that's supposed to be right now, don't know. But the video is interesting.
Yeah, I ran into one of those videos on fan.tv or whatever, and it had a couple clips from different hospitals, and a lot of them had tents set up in the parking facilities. So it's like they're like ready to go, and the waiting rooms are totally empty, just like you said. Except they had a couple clips from hospitals that were quite full as well. And one of my thoughts on that was that if you can't protect your healthcare workers, it makes sense to fill up your hospital sequentially, so that as your workers get sick, you still have workers in reserve in clean facilities. So you max out one hospital at a time to the degree that you can transfer patients around until you're saturated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, that's a good point. So I don't know what to make of that. Something else that's out there. Corey, you put in a note about supply chain shortages, demand in grocery store channels.
Yeah. So the thought here. Okay, so the reports from some grocery stores in the lower 48 are saying that they are opening trucks and the trucks aren't full. They're getting 20% of their orders when they normally get like 98% of their orders, and they're getting orders rejected and just incomplete orders. And so the claim is that there was a big initial drawdown on these stores a couple weeks ago, and then the trucks kept up, delivered stuff from the national warehouses, and then now those warehouses are getting depleted. So the distributors are having to ration supplies going to stores, or not ration, but that there's more demand than they can fill that they have on hand, and it's taking a while for the suppliers to catch up. And compounding this is the fact that people are kind of, even if they're not hoarding food, they're buying more food than they normally would, and they're also not eating at restaurants. So that's putting more stress on the grocery store supply chain. And it looks like I've also heard reports that there is a surplus in the commercial food supply chain, where restaurants are giving away their ingredients because they can't, it's about to go bad and they can't move it. So it seems like some kind of inefficiency where the restaurant suppliers can't package and sell their food to the grocery stores. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's a total food shortage. It's just the supply chains aren't in place to get the food where it needs to go.
Yeah, they're not one-to-one interchangeable.
Yeah.
Interesting. Point 4 that you put in here was thoughts on modern monetary theory and Trump call for more spending. I listened to a portion. So modern monetary theory is basically that it's that money has value because it's used for taxes, more or less, kind of. Um, and I listened to that Tom Woods debate, or a little bit of it, like the first half that you sent. We should link to that. Anyway, I think that is probably. It was interesting listening to that because the guy on the side of modern monetary theory he's not like a pro-government guy or anything like that. He was just making the point that in order to understand what's going on with money in this day and age, classical monetary theory is not going to serve you super well. And I thought that was pretty good because that's why that fit in with. You sent that other investment video, the guy talking about buying oil tankers, you know, and he made the point that there was going to be. He thought there was going to be stagflation, which is a stagnant economy with monetary inflation, and also that there's no way that the mistakes of the past get repeated. You always make new mistakes. So, like in the Great Depression, he noted that there was deflation because there was a shortage of money, so the price of things went up. He said that'll never happen again. No one in government is going to let 1929 happen again. And that's why he thinks there's going to be inflation. But he made the point that it matters where the inflation happens, and it matters how you measure it. And you can't just say if the dollar is strong, or if gold's strong, the dollar will be weak, or vice versa. There's many other factors going on, and gold might go up, like relative to what? That was his whole point: is what is everything relative to? And the demand for dollars might not be. It might not be that people want dollars. This is something you were talking about. It might not be that people want dollars to save in, but they need them to transact in. And so there could be these forces that are pushing the dollar up, even when a bunch of them are being made. And then with gold, like gold won't necessarily just go up because there's more dollars. If people are chasing other things with those dollars, gold might not do anything. It would tend over the long term, it would tend to go up because it's a safe haven asset. But if people need to get out of investments, they need to move into dollars, not gold.
Right.
So he was viewing all these things as independent, and it was interesting because he wasn't talking like Austrians tend to talk about economics as sitting on top of this unified idea of money.
Mhm.
And this guy wasn't. He wasn't talking about it that way. He was just treating all the different monies as competing commodities that aren't pegged to anything, which is true. And so his assessment of the investment situation made a lot more sense in light of some modern monetary theory. Yep.
Yep. And I think comparing stuff like the dollar milkshake theory to like Peter Schiff's stuff, it's not as it's just confusing. So people are less likely to get on board with it because, like this I think Chris McIntosh, he doesn't have a clear like go do this like Peter Schiff does. Peter Schiff has a solution, whether it's right or wrong. He's confident in his solution, and some of these things that are more related to modern monetary theory and trying to predict the results of it. They're not really saying what's going to happen. They're just saying, "Hey, look at all this complexity that's going on, and try to take that into account." And that's a lot less satisfying as a strategy than saying, "Hey, gold's going here, jump on board."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
it's just
Because the complexity doesn't give you a single easy button to push.
yeah, yeah. And I think we could have a conversation about what is 0 volts, what's ground, maybe another time. But yeah,
Yeah. What's your reference? It's like sea level.
There's no one currency to base anything on.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was super interesting. I'm gonna keep digging more into that, and that'll be a fun thing. We're gonna have Bob Wenzel on Friday. Josh
Okay.
has got him dialed in, and I think it'd be fun to ask Bob what he thinks about that.
Yeah, yeah, because some of the stuff that Trump has said recently about, well, in the middle of very quickly and being willing to spend trillions of dollars on stuff, saying stuff like, "Well, it's our money supply, we can do what we want," essentially, makes it sound like he is on board with MMT, and that's a pretty interesting strategic position for him to take, especially since that's a lot of Bernie Sanders economic advisors are MMT people. So for Trump to, ahead of the election, go out and just implement MMT really takes a lot of Bernie's lunch, so to speak. So it'll be interesting to see if some of these MMT economists, um, it's kind of like what their only chance of implementing their ideas right now are through Bernie, and that's not a real good bet. But if Trump's already doing it, getting them to jump on board with Trump, that would be very weird because there's a lot of socialist policy that goes along with MMT. So that would be a very uh, strange bedfellows to have Trump with MMT um, policy advisors.
It would be the guy in the debate on Tom Woods show noted that you didn't have to be a socialist
Yep.
to be a modern monetary theorist. You just had to cede the point that money is not backed by anything anywhere anymore.
Hmm.
Once you cede that point, and not necessarily support that point, but just acknowledge it,
Right.
it lets you analyze things differently.
Money is created out of government debt,
Yeah, right.
and you need the debt to have a money supply.
Yep.
Yep. So more on that later. That will be an interesting development.
Yeah. On our other points, did you want to jump into anything on the slope, Josh?
There's not a whole lot of developments up there that I know of from the other day, anyways.
Well,
Or was that yesterday? I guess I don't remember what day's what anymore. They do have
so
at least one case.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I'm reading an old article, but this was on the front page of Daily News Miner today about BP confirming a case on the North Slope. But that sounds like that was already known, and I'm a day late.
Um, do you have any line on what's going on in with the shale oil in North Dakota? Sounds like that's pretty much just over now.
Yeah, Aaron, my brother Aaron said that one of the companies that they work for declared bankruptcy today. I guess that was they were working exclusively for that company. But I've seen several articles saying that the United States can't afford strategically to let the oil shale companies go out of business. So I imagine there'll be some heavy money pumping going their way soon.
That's something this guy Corey linked me up to was talking about, is the shale oil. He actually was saying that those guys have so much debt, they were kind of slated to go under in 2022 or thereabouts anyway. The producers there have never actually made money. But that it was mostly a strategic play by the U.S. Gov to become energy independent. And so he said, like, it's weird because there's economics and politics and military strategy all rolled into one with that.
National strategic.
Yeah, they're heavily leveraged. That's for sure.
Leveraged how?
debt.
Yeah.
They're in debt.
Yeah.
Big time debt.
Yeah.
But we did see Trump had some phone call with Putin 2 days ago to make some kind of an oil deal with him or something, which I don't know what that really means, since Trump, as far as I know, hasn't nationalized any of the oil here yet. So I don't know exactly what deal he would make, unless he started mandating something for American companies.
Yeah. We got a couple other items in here that you noted, Corey. There's some Wuhan Research Lab talking points that are starting to come out.
Yeah. So as we've known for a while, this has been a narrative that's been out there about the research lab and it escaping and it being created. And I guess a week or so ago, there were some Chinese officials that came out blaming the U.S. Army for releasing it during some war games that happened last fall, and that upset a lot of international communities because they were basically baseless allegations. It's just somebody was using their political platform and the CCP to make these allegations, and then possibly in response to that, we're seeing some Tucker Carlson, not too surprising, but now the Washington Times is starting to. They recently ran a story where they were talking about this narrative, and they said Chinese government researchers isolated more than 2,000 new viruses, including deadly bat coronaviruses, and carried out scientific work on them just 3 miles from the wild animal market identified as the epicenter for COVID-19 pandemic. So the story itself isn't new, but the fact that mainstream media is now covering it, and that's quite a development. And my concern is that when the media gets involved in a big finger pointing game, that cannot end well. We've seen journalism start wars before, and not saying that's where this is going, but that's a necessary step, is to get public support through creating an enemy.
Yeah, find out which talking points stick.
Maybe not a war with China, but today's White House daily coronavirus update briefing was basically just all military. They announced that they're going to double the presence in South America to fight the drug wars, because they're saying that the cartels are doubling their efforts to get drugs into America. Clearly, they called out Maduro, saying that he was working with the cartels to finance his tyrannical government. And they're going to put a stop to that, which is interesting because they basically brought him on charges. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Found him guilty of something. So
Maduro?
the Marines were involved in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
And the Marines are involved in that escalation. So could we see an invasion of Venezuela? Wouldn't put it out of the realm. They also said that they had confirmed that Iran was planning attacks on American interest in these times. So we'll see. Which is interesting because I've been reading the last couple of days that drugs coming into the States has gone way down because the cartels or whatever, they can't get the chemicals and things that they need to make drugs because no one's shipping anything.
Right. Yeah, and I was
But
wondering
yet
about
the
that.
official narrative is they're doubling their efforts.
If people are low on money, but they have a lot of time at home, does drug use go up or down? And it looks like alcohol use is going way up, or alcohol purchasing is going way up. Um, so I could see the demand for drugs also going way up in the U.S.
Yeah, being locked in, all sorts of weird stuff.
Well, they said that they've seen the price of different drugs doubling on the street because of the lack of them, which just doesn't make any sense. I mean, the White House narrative today with the actual reality doesn't mesh, which makes you have to wonder. I mean, is it just? I mean, at a time when the CEO of the aircraft carrier Roosevelt, I think it's the Roosevelt, is asking for them to be able to abandon their ship. Trump says, let's double our efforts with the Navy. How does that make any sense? So it goes back
aircraft.
to, these mixed messages of what do we believe? What's the truth?
Right.
And everybody's locked at home while all this is going on.
Right.
That was kind of
Yeah.
in that video, the hospital video, that was kind of the point. It wasn't that the facilities may or may not be needed. It was that there's one thing being said. It's not just being said that they're being prepared. It's being said that they're being swamped. And
Just
so these
just
people,
like the mask thing. The mask thing is going to go down in history because the CDC and the government came out and said, instead of saying, "Hey, we're in a bad spot and we need all the masks we can get for our healthcare workers," they lied and said masks don't work and you're better off not using them. And that broke the trust, which is way more damaging than anything else because now there's nowhere to go from there. Now there's anytime there's a claim made by them, more and more people are going to question it, even if it is the truth. So I think that was very damaging.
yep, credibility is in short supply right now.
Just like N95 masks.
Just like N95 masks. Yeah. Well, I have to roll. I don't have a lot of time this evening. You guys have any other wrap-up points?
Nope. That covered the list.
Okay.
Good.
Shout out to
seeing you.
people listening. We got the call-in thing dialed in yesterday. Corey and I tested it out. It's awesome. So we will be taking calls on all of the rest of these shows, and it sounds really good, actually. Sounds better than KFAR's call-in. So that'll be available going forward. So we look forward to not very many people streaming right now, but Wednesday's kind of a slow show. So Friday, 3 o'clock Alaska time, Robert Wenzel. Tune in, and we will be taking calls. That'll probably be an hour or 2 hours long, something like that. So like 3 to 4, 3 to 5 Alaska time, or 3. It's Friday. So if you're catching this as a later broadcast, be sure to tune in then. And if you want to have a chat with us, we will have the phones working. Awesome. Thanks for popping on, guys.
Yep. Catch you guys later. Bye.
Yep. See you guys on Friday.